The modern global economy runs on a high-efficiency model that relies entirely on a few vulnerable geographic bottlenecks. This is the Strait of Hormuz. It is only 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, yet 20% of the world's seaborne crude oil and liquid natural gas must pass through this channel every day. On February 28, 2026, the United States and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury. The center of the campaign was a decapitation strike that assassinated Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. Iran's military responded within hours, initiating a full physical blockade of the Strait of Hormuz to all commercial traffic. By severing this single critical jugular vein of global commerce, Iran put the entire world economy on a ticking clock. Brent crude oil immediately surged past $120 a barrel, as massive LNG tankers were left stranded in the Gulf with no safe exit. This chart shows the Dutch TTF gas benchmarks, which doubled to over 60 euros per megawatt-hour by mid-March. Europe was particularly vulnerable, sitting on historically low gas reserves following a harsh winter. Suppliers were forced into a legal standstill. Qatar Energy and other major exporters declared force majeure, a legal status used when unforeseen circumstances prevent a company from fulfilling its supply contracts. Simultaneously, the regional aviation sector collapsed. As Middle Eastern nations closed their airspace, airlines were forced into multinational reroutes that sent jet fuel consumption and ticket prices soaring. These energy and aviation shocks were the first visible dominoes in a much deeper systemic failure. The crisis intensified on March 18th, when an attack on Qatar's Ras Laffan complex disabled 17% of the nation's LNG capacity. This diagram traces helium captured during natural gas refining. Qatar produces 35% of the world's helium. This shortage crippled the semiconductor industry. Chip manufacturing requires helium to cool silicon wafers. Without it, production lines in Asia and the U.S. stalled. Agriculture was the next target. Gulf states account for 45% of globally traded sulfur and urea, the raw materials required to produce fertilizer. As exports stopped, global fertilizer prices spiked by 40%. This threatened crop yields for farmers in Brazil and India, who were unable to secure the inputs needed for the spring planting season. The blockade proved that the global economy is a single, perilously fragile system. A localized missile strike in the Middle East had successfully triggered a tech and food crisis across the Americas and Asia. Before the war, the Persian Gulf was marketed as a safe haven of hyper-modernization, a wealthy, stable hub for global finance and expatriates. However, the Gulf Cooperation Council imports 80. The blockade triggered grocery emergencies across the region, with consumer prices for basic staples jumping 120% in weeks. Regional water security collapsed as Iranian strikes targeted desalination plants. These facilities provide 99% of the drinking water for Kuwait and Qatar. This instability led to a massive exodus of expatriate workers and tech talent. Hundreds of thousands of Indian nationals were repatriated as the perception of the Gulf as a secure destination for labor and investment evaporated. The conflict proved that even the most modern skyscrapers cannot survive without basic physical logistics. By May 2026, the macroeconomic pain was unsustainable. Global stock markets had declined, the bond market was in sell-off mode, and Germany was entering a technical recession. Developing nations from the Philippines to Africa faced fuel emergencies, with panic buying and transport strikes bringing daily life to a halt. Under pressure from allies, U.S. President Donald Trump halted military strikes to prioritize a negotiated end to the economic disruption. Diplomatic teams convened in Islamabad, Pakistan, to draft a memorandum of understanding aimed at ending the war. The American team included Vice President J.D. Vance and envoys Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, tasked with finding a framework to reopen the strait. Iran's new leadership, consolidated under Mojtaba Khamenei, demanded a full lifting of the blockade before any long-term nuclear or security issues could be discussed. The 2026 Iran war demonstrated that in a hyper-globalized world, localized conflict is a myth. Control over these 21 miles of water dictates the survival of the global economy and the strategic boundaries of modern warfare.